So again, thank you guys all for joining us for Your Engaged Now What. We are all in a bit of a standstill in the world right now. So as wedding professionals in the area, we are always looking to help newly engaged couples however we can. And being stuck at home right now, as if you didn't need another thing on your list to try to tread through as you start to plan your big day. So we figured, let's put together a webinar to reach out to you guys and see what do you need help with? Where are you guys stuck? How do you really start the planning? And on top of that, how do you start doing all of that while you're stuck at home? So we are glad you are all here today, and we hope we can be of somewhat of assistance for you as you guys navigate this process. So thank you. With that being said, I'd love to go around and introduce everybody to our panel today. My name is Ashley. I am one of the co-owners of Lemon & Lime Event Design. We are a wedding planning and design company based in Baltimore, but we travel everywhere. So if you're looking for a destination, definitely call us. But yes, and I will send it on over to Megan, who's going to introduce herself as well.
Hi, I'm Megan. I am Ruby the Fox. I do custom wedding invitations, social stationery, based in Baltimore, but paper can be shipped anywhere, so we are everywhere.
Thanks, Megan. Renee.
Hi, I'm Renee with Renee Hollingshead Photography. I'm a destination wedding photographer based in Florida and the DMV, and I go everywhere too.
We were sad when Renee moved. She was up living the life in Baltimore and Annapolis with us, but moved to Florida recently to be close to her family. So we are very glad we still get to see her all the time. So thank you for traveling, Renee.
Thank you for having me.
And then we've got Jason.
Hi, I'm Jason Wallace with District Remix. I'm one of the owners with my partner, Jacob Jensen, who's probably watching. We are based in Columbia, Maryland. We primarily service the Baltimore, DC, VA, and Eastern Shore areas, but we do also do destination weddings. So yeah, everything's custom with us and personalized, and you definitely get exactly what you invest in.
We have next, Carolyn.
Hey everyone, my name is Carolyn Klaus. I'm with Revolution Event Design and Production. We do wedding production, and what that means is basically everything that needs to be brought into your event to make it unique and custom to the space. So anything that's basically not florals or styling is what you would bring me on for. And kind of like everybody said, we go everywhere. We're based in the DMV, but anything is possible. So.
Victoria.
Hello, everybody. Victoria Clausen, and we own Floral, an event design company, Victoria Clausen Floral Events. I've been in business for about 20 years and done weddings from East Coast to West Coast and abroad. So any questions you have about local or destination weddings, I'll do my best to help out.
And Melinda.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melinda Redling. I'm Director of Catering and Conference Services at the Four Seasons in Baltimore. We're located in the Inner Harbor, and we are a complete wedding hotel venue with beautiful ballrooms and outdoor space sitting right on the water. So we look forward to having the opportunity to meet with all of you.
Of course, Katie.
Hello, I'm the other co-owner of Lemon & Lime. We're excited to speak/see kind of everyone tonight. We know that, being engaged is supposed to be a really exciting time, so we want to get back to that exciting time for everyone. And we're just looking forward to answering any and all of your questions.
Morgan.
Hi, I'm Morgan with Lemon & Lime as well. I'm their operations manager, and we are just thrilled to have you guys on tonight and hope we get to share a lot of good information with you.
Thanks, everybody. So with that said, I'd love to pass it on over to Katie, who's going to walk us through all of your questions and kind of guide us through for the rest of the night. Not the rest of the night, not forever, but you know, just a little bit.
I'll be here till late night now. All right, so let's just dive right in. And we figured we would just dive right into a lot of the COVID-related questions. We know a lot of people, whether you were supposed to be getting married in a couple of months or even next year, a lot of people are worried and you know, want to know some answers. I think just to start us off, you know, none of us are lawyers or doctors. You know, we can wear many hats, but we don't wear those hats. So any advice that we are giving you or any content that we are sharing with you is strictly what we've been hearing throughout leaders in our industry, as far as in addition to some other leaders throughout the state or the city or whatever. So you know, don't hold us to any kind of legal advice. You know, we won't be giving any of that, but we just figured we'd want to give that disclaimer. You know, we're solely giving advice based on what we know. Very sadly, no one here has a crystal ball to know what the next 5, 6, 7 months will look like. If we find one, we will definitely let you know. But as of now, you know, we're all in similar boats, but we definitely can answer a lot of the questions that were sent in, which is great. So I think the first one, you know, kind of going over to Melinda as a venue, I think is super helpful because, you know, you're holding the wedding. So based on what you're allowed to do and whatever, the rest of us can't come in if you can't let us, obviously. So one of the questions, well, let's start off with, you know, what might weddings look like in a late June, July, August, September? Again, we know you don't know for sure, but there's been a lot of buzz about smaller, intimate weddings. I know you guys got some amazing outdoor options there, which is huge. Being outside, as we know, is allowed. Floor plan, seating capacity, food service. So just walk us a little bit through, you know, what I'm sure a lot of your other Zoom calls are focused on these days and what you're hearing.
Right. Well, thank you. Yeah, like Katie said, we don't have a crystal ball. So I've been doing weddings now for about 25 years. So this is very challenging for me to not be able to give my couples definite answers, things that they can plan. I mean, I'm a planner, so I need to have facts in front of me and how to move forward. And we haven't been able to do that. So what we're doing with a lot of our couples, and as newly engaged couples, I encourage all of you to be diligent in like looking at dates and reaching out to myself or other venues to see if 2021 what dates are available, because that's what we're going to see. We're going to see very limited calendars in 2021 because girls and couples that are trying to get married in April and May that haven't been able to are moving their weddings to later this year or into the following year. So that would be the first advice I'd give you, is try to like narrow down some dates, check with the venue, and then move forward to step 2 from there. You know, we don't know what's going to happen, as Katie said, but we're all ready to go. We're full steam ahead. We're following the guidelines of the CDC and the governor. So it looks like, you know, smaller, more intimate weddings might be the way to go at Four Seasons. And if you follow us on our Instagram, next week, the end of next week, we should be rolling out some new collections of micro weddings, which are going to be smaller weddings. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have the wedding of your dream. It would be maybe something we do now in 2020 that's a little bit more intimate. And then in 2021, we bring in we have the big celebration, which everybody is going to be desperately in need of at that point. The other thing that we're going to be rolling out is something called a mini moni. A mini moni is going to be just the couple having a really nice overnight stay at the hotel. And as was mentioned, we do have 2 gorgeous terraces right on the water. So you don't have to make a big investment into decor, but with these other vendors here tonight, you know, they can give you advice on how we can make a mini moni just as special as a big ceremony. And then we plan another party going forward into 2021 for you. So there are a lot of options. We're looking at food service is going to be directly affected. So maybe, you know, we're thinking of doing things that are a little bit more traditional, like plated. We might have to get away from the stations, but everything right now, there's no. We don't say no. I'm open to all options, and we're really looking forward to talking to all of you and hearing what your vision is and how in this COVID non-normal world that we're living in, that we can make your vision work. And that's why the experts on this panel today can also help those visions come true along with, but we've got the venue, we've got a beautiful setting, and that's the first thing. So I would say the date, and then let's consider all the options for the wedding size, because that we do not know. I don't want somebody to have their heart set on a July or August wedding and say I'm inviting 300 to 400 people, and then we have a limit on the wedding. So we're adapting every single day.
Amazing. The mini moon, what was it? Mini
Moni. It's very difficult to say.
But that is an amazing idea.
Mini Moni.
Oh, great. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't know that. Breaking news. I mean, that's
it is really, you're
sure.
first, so it is now.
Can those of us not getting married come stay? Because that sounds yeah, what a great way to celebrate what potentially would have been your wedding date until the larger celebration comes in 2021. And yeah, you bring up a great point as well. You know, as of now, 2 months of weddings have already been rescheduled. Some people have electively moved to next year, but you know, 2021 could potentially be 1 year with 2 years worth of weddings. Correct. So definitely good for couples to start reaching out to their venues and vendor team. You know, a lot of us on this panel can only do one wedding a day. Obviously, someone like a florist, hair and makeup production company, they can take on a couple more. DJ, I know you have a great team, Jason, so it's not just, you know, just one person. But again, you know, there's only so many weddings that people can do in a day. So it definitely is good, even if you're looking at 2021, even into 2022, you know, start those conversations because, you know, especially a Saturday and even a Friday and a Sunday are definitely going to be hot, you know, the next year or two. And like you said, Melinda, everyone's gonna be so ready to celebrate.
Yes.
A lot of my friends are already married. I was like looking through my contacts, and someone please. I mean, clearly I'll be at amazing client weddings, but a little different, you know, when you're working. But people will be so excited for the celebration for the next couple years. So that's exciting. We did get a specific question for you, Melinda. How are you feeling about a July 19th wedding at your location? You know, what should they expect from the planning process? And, you know,
we are still on track. I mean, we're hopeful that the restrictions will be lifted. We may have to make some adjustments as far as floor plans go and seating arrangements. I believe that the social distancing will still be in place as far as, you know, seating capacities. But there, again, you would turn to somebody like any of your event production, like Carolyn from Event Rev that's on the call today, to say, instead of traditional tables, maybe we do some great soft seating or other options that would work really well. And it makes it fun for you because it's going to be a little bit different than the weddings you've been to, or, you know, as everyone says, the cookie cutter weddings. So we're going to react as we get the news. We're working very closely with every single bride that we have coming up. And you're absolutely right. It's June and July right now that we're focusing on. But as far as my staff cannot be more eager to work. We have fabulous chefs. So everything is on schedule to go. We just might have to be a little more creative in how the room is set and how we go about with food service. But we're ready. I'm waiting for the green light. That's all I keep waiting for.
I think we all are. We are all ready to go.
Yeah. I'll take the amber light. We'll move slowly, but something else but the red light.
Run out of my house without shoes on and just run downtown and be like, I'm ready.
Right.
And you bring up a good point. I do think, you know, especially with so many on this panel, everybody on this panel, because, you know, from down to what food signage or a menu or, you know, that might look like, up into obviously how a DJ or a band interacts and what's allowed there and where can we place them. And then all the soft seating options. And, you know, it's not going to be potentially these 10 rounds in a dance floor. It's going to be unique. And, you know, if anything, it'll be a creative kind of puzzle to put together. But obviously to make it still happen is the main goal. And it could even be better than maybe an original plan. I'm not trying to, you know, that sounds very hopeful, but it could be. And I think it could be really interesting to see the different takes that people take on it, you know, especially once more specific guidelines, you know, every time Hogan talks, we're like, okay.
I know.
I think I listen and talk to him more than some family members now. I don't talk to him directly, but, you know, just talk about him and watch him. But yeah, I think you bring up some great points there. All right. So Ashley, do you want to run through quickly, you know, how a wedding planner can help navigate through this process? You know, obviously we've had several clients affected as of now, almost all of them. So, you know, it's definitely something that we've been concentrating on the last couple months. I know not everybody has a wedding planner. We've definitely gotten inquiries from people who didn't have one, and now they're like, we're looking to
What do I do?
Yeah, we're looking to add this service. So maybe just a little bit about, you know, how we can help navigate, in addition to, I know one of the questions was, what is the recommendation? You know, proceed with booking or hold off until we have a better understanding of when venues will be operating normally, was one specific question.
Yeah, so just kind of starting off with piggybacking on what Katie and Melinda have already touched on, you know, we are all very familiar with policies right now and regulations and staying up to date on as much information as we possibly can. I cannot count the number of Zoom calls and meetings we are in to gather all of this information, but it is all to make sure we are taking care of our clients and taking care of our couples first, because we still want to be able to make sure everybody has this amazing day, whether it's their original vision or a little bit modified version of it. So definitely things that we can help them navigate are through those processes like Katie was talking about. If you've already booked a date and you need to postpone, how do you do that? What do you need to look for in your contracts? Who do you contact first? What if not all of your vendors can be available for that date? Those are all things that would be on us to help you navigate through. So you're already stressed enough, we are sure. So it's something that we take on for you. And when you're looking at things like space restrictions and needing to restructure things like Melinda was talking about, we can help you with figuring out how that puzzle really does come together. So that's all something that your planner, I can speak for Lemon and Lime, that we would do for you, so you guys don't have to worry about things like that. That's also, you know, in addition to normal wedding planning type things. So finding your venues like Katie was talking about. When do we need to start booking these things? Is it safe? You know, we're newly engaged. We can't get out of our house. How do we go out and look at venues? Don't hold off. That's definitely our recommendation. Don't stop just because you can't get out of the house. You can still do some research, but that's also where your planner can come in, because we've worked at venues all over the place. So, you know, meeting with your planner via Zoom or on the phone and talking about what your needs are, what your budget is, and making sure you're getting that venue and getting that date. Because again, like Melinda was saying, those dates are going to be very hot. Everybody is fighting for these things. So we want to make sure that you guys aren't missing out just because you're on a bit of a standstill at this point. So definitely don't feel like you're stuck. Hire a planner, hire someone to help guide you through these things.
For sure. Yeah. And, you know, there's obviously planners offer various packages. You know, at the least, I know a lot of planners offer like a day of, a month of, something small or something like that. At least, especially if you've already postponed your wedding once, like let somebody come in. You know, I know obviously finances and your overall budget is a big part of it. But, you know, if you're able to afford someone to come in and just run that day for you, out of all the stress you've already been through, you know, if that can work out financially, normally it is worth every penny. I know we're a little biased, but yeah, and especially going into, you know, into next year. Again, I'm not a doctor, not a scientist. There is, you know, people feel very confidently about, you know, April of next year moving forward as far as hopefully being back to normal. And that's kind of in the industry, what we are hearing, back to those good old 300-person weddings, and that Melinda, I know you guys love so much, and we do as well. I mean, I know we all do weddings of different sizes, but, you know, again, not a scientist, but I think if you're looking into next year, it does seem, you know, hopefully April 1, you know, might be that 100% green light that we're all looking for, maybe even before that, of course. But that's kind of what we're advising 2021 couples as of now who do not have, you know, might not have a venue or whatever else. Okay, so Victoria, do you want to talk to us a little bit about, you know, what you guys have been going through there? There's a lot of people that, you know, had a spring wedding, maybe now they have a fall wedding, maybe they have a winter wedding, maybe they were expecting a lot of 300 people, but they still want to move forward with a smaller guest count, and just kind of catch us up briefly on, the floral world, and what, any 2020 couples on the webinar can kind of expect from any changes moving forward.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I want to say that if you're going to get a vendor team, make sure that you're looking for somebody who is 100% committed to your day. We've been talking about having professional vendor team, how important it is, but also make sure that the team itself feels like a team, that you're not having individual people, because especially with times like this, where there is a lot of uncertainty and a lot of things might be happening at the last minute, you need to make sure that people working together behind you, kind of coming together to make sure that your day is perfect, no matter what, if you have 300 people or if you have 50 people. So from the floral side, again, we don't know what's going to happen, but I would suggest everybody to be a little bit more flexible and a little bit more patient and understanding, because we don't know what's going to happen in the flower world. As of now, we see already shortages with some supply. We see prices rising on flowers because of shipping, because of limited airline flights, because of farms operating on a limited with limited resources, because of the workforce is not there, because of there's a lot of loss happened in the first months of the COVID, where everything was 100% shut down. Now we see, luckily, reopening a little bit with Mother's Day, and with all the positive news everywhere. So we're looking forward to it, but I would say it's a good advice, no matter it's COVID or non-COVID, but don't get stuck on a particular flower or particular shade of the flower. Give the freedom of being creative to your vendor team, from florists to your production company to the planners. You're going to be surprised what amazing results you're going to get if people can be flexible and creative, knowing your vision, knowing your heart, knowing your preferences. So I would say that would be my biggest advice. Just be flexible and let go of. I know a lot of us are type A and want to know everything, but more you're gonna empower your vendor team to do the best they can, because we're all passionate professionals. We're not just doing this because of a career, because of the income. We're doing it because we love it. That's the breed, pretty much, of people you are dealing with. So let your team to do the best they can and be a little bit more flexible. So, and also, I just wanted to touch base on the fact that you might see that some people are charging, especially for those people who are rescheduling the weddings, you might see some fees popping up here and there, because there's a lot of time that goes into planning each wedding, even from the floral side, from production side, from every angle. And every time you need to change something, there's more hours goes into it, more research, etc. We even have been doing it for a long, long time. Still, again, to do every wedding the best we can, we really need to put time. So we're trying to do our very best to be totally understanding that everybody's going through the hard time, but this is the foundation of the fees, kind of like the background of why we might need to charge them. So we just also, as much as we're trying to be understanding of everybody who is going through this tough time, we also want you guys to understand that we also need to make a living and spend time doing, again, creating something absolutely magical for you, for your wedding day.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I know it's not a fun topic to talk about, but it is a lot of work. Obviously, so many industries have been hit extremely hard by this. The wedding industry, of course, involved in that, for sure. And, it is a lot of work to all the postponing and this moving around, and obviously just complete shutdown of business the last couple of months, as far as weddings that were supposed to happen and all of those things, the final payments coming in, and everyone here is just trying to run their business as smartly and efficiently as possible. And these fees, we're not going to go buy new shoes with them. We're just trying to, again, it's going to be most likely, about a year and a half of weddings into 1 year. So it's just, we're trying to figure out the best that we can. So thank you for bringing that up, Victoria. It's not, again, a fun topic, but something that definitely needs to be addressed, because couples will be seeing fees, postponing into 2021, or, if some of you have already postponed, you've probably already seen some of those. They've been calling replanning fees, postponing fees, all that good stuff. I'm sure that, once you sign new contracts, you might notice some more language in there, as we're all trying to protect ourselves from this pandemic. So definitely good to keep in mind. Jason, Renee, Megan, and Carolyn, I know obviously you've all been extremely affected by this as well. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about, does anyone want to touch on anything, just as far as COVID related with your teams, or we could just.
I would just, sorry, hi guys. I just wanted to piggyback off of what Victoria said, and, really trusting your vendor team. And I think newly engaged couples, you're just as committed to this party and this event for you and your guests, so if you're truly committed, don't go into it with fears of like, should I put a deposit down? Should I book this vendor? Should I, because we're in it together. We're going to, if the communication lines are open, which is what I think this has done for everybody, be extremely transparent with each other. We're going to give you that extra boost of confidence you need. Talk about our terms and conditions, talk about our, refundable deposit policies and all of that, to make you comfortable to make those decisions. Because like Ashley was saying, don't wait. The longer you wait, if you're wanting to get a 2021 wedding date, it's going to be taken. So you're going to be looking at 2022, which there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe that's your comfort level, but just keeping, communication lines open and talking to people about what their policies are. Maybe they can be flexible with you on payments and deposits and all of that, because we equally want to be there to make your day magical, like Victoria said.
Perfect. Thank you, for sure. And I think a lot of our favorite weddings are, everyone involved is when the couple really, really trusts you. They're still very, very involved in the planning and the design. It's not like we take it and run. They're very involved. But when they trust you, it is some of the best results. And Carolyn, you definitely win for fabulous Zoom. Just want to say you win. I love your background. You look like maybe you're in New York City runway or something. So you win, A+. But Renee or Jason or Megan, anybody want to add anything? Or I know you've all been rescheduling like crazy, and Megan, you've been doing a lot of postponement fill-ins. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what you've been offering your couples, if people have already sent invites, what they can do.
So for couples who were ready to send their invitations and they were designed and ready to basically be mailed, if the wedding is still happening as of now, it hasn't yet been postponed, most of my couples are including some sort of an insert or a note on the back of an insert, sort of letting people know this obviously is a very fluid situation. And a lot of couples are collecting guest email addresses, or most are doing that actually to then say, we're going to reach out with any additional information or should things change. So they have just everything compiled at one time. Obviously people are sending guests to their websites to keep up to date with what's happening. But almost all of my current couples are sending out some sort of an insert. I am sending out a lot of save the dates currently, with just, the hope that things are going to kind of pick back up and be happening as scheduled in the future. But for guests for couples who have had to postpone and invitations have already been mailed, we're sending out, digital, in coordination with your invitation suite, a digital, note to guests saying it's been postponed and here's a new date. We're doing a resave the date or a change the date. And a lot of couples are having a little bit of fun with that, because it is an unfortunate situation, but keeping some levity there and sending out maybe a little bit more of a whimsical card to just let your guests know. But again, just like every other vendor in the scheme of things, it's just keeping, being fluid and trusting your vendor team, and, giving people the flexibility to sort of make the best decisions with the entire group. So paper is no different there.
Definitely. I know I've loved some of the creativity as far as the date change and things like that, little Corona bottles and rhymes that are witty.
Yeah.
And, just, I know guests are getting during such a rough time, getting a little chuckle of how people are kind of creatively changing their dates. And
yes,
I know you were offering a lot of free, like the digital things when this all first started. So thank you so much for doing that for clients, or just for couples. That was very nice of you. And yeah, luckily we can always mail or email and all that good stuff. So that's good. All right, Jason.
So yeah, we've had roughly 70 or more couples that have had to postpone and move. So it's affected all 8 of our wedding DJs. We're trying to be as proactive as possible and make it an easy process for our couples. So definitely on the planning aspect and the design aspect, there's a lot more work involved with rescheduling things because you kind of have to start over. We're basically just checking a schedule and making sure we have somebody that can fill the slot. So we definitely encourage our couples to postpone and not cancel. About 99% of our couples are postponing, and it's been smooth sailing. We've got a great team of DJs, and the way that we train our guys, we're very interchangeable. So if it's not me or not my partner and they work with one of our other guys, they're going to get the same experience. You're just going to have a different, hopefully, hug at that point at the end of the night and a different guy's voice on the microphone. But we just keeping the ball rolling, and we want to celebrate with our couples. We didn't book with them because we like playing music for money. Like, that's part of it, but this is what we do, what we breathe, what we eat, what we sleep. My friends tend to make fun of me saying I don't have a real career, and I'm like, this is 15 years of this, and it's been amazing, and the ride gets better every year. This is just a speed bump as far as we're concerned, and hopefully somebody upstairs is listening and we get back to what we all do really well. And, everybody here on this panel they excel in their category. And it's not just, like we're going to show up and bring an iPod, and Victoria's not going to show up with a vase of flowers. Like, a lot of thought process goes behind all this stuff. And there's a science to each part of what we all do, and making sure that it all wraps together so that you have the best possible experience versus, as we were discussing, kind of, you're working with individuals. We want to be a team with you. And I'm tired of cutting my grass, and I'm ready to get back to the turntables.
But your grass is looking amazingly in good shape, though.
My neighbors have no idea who I am right now.
You bring up a really good point. I mean, we all eat, breathe, sleep this, and obviously we know it's not our wedding days here, but we are just almost as invested. I know that seems hard. You're financially and emotionally invested, but we really do. When we're not talking to each other about what's going on, we're talking to our spouses or our partners or even our kids. And it's we all really we're together as a team, and we're thinking about this, and just anything that we can do to make the experience better for everyone. We know this is a day that even if you haven't been dreaming of your whole life, you've definitely been excited about for at least the last year. So we want to make it as close to what you were envisioning as possible. So thank you for touching on that, Jason. And then Renee, I think you wanted to say a little something too from the photography world.
Yeah, so I mean, every photographer is going to be different and have their different policies and the way that they operate, but I can speak on what we have been doing as far as our clients. All of our spring and summer have all pushed back to the fall, and even for next year. And we're super flexible with it as long as our clients are communicating with us ahead of time. So as photographers, it's me and I have another team member as well as second shooters. So we're a little bit more limited on dates. My company, we only shoot 15 weddings a year, and we only shoot one event a weekend. So we're a little bit more flexible as far as dates, as some photographers may have 70, 100 weddings a year, which might be a little bit more difficult to reschedule. So I think it's very important, whoever your photographer is, that you make sure that you communicate if you are planning to reschedule or postpone, just to make sure that those dates are available. Like everyone has said, 2021 is starting to get booked up pretty fast. And we want to be there to support you and be there for your day and keep your original vendor team. You know, we've worked with our clients for, you know, over a year. We've done their engagement sessions, and we're really looking forward to those, that big wedding weekend. So it's very important that, you know, just to stress again, that you just communicate with everyone ahead of time, so that way you can get those dates worked out. As far as engagement sessions, we're kind of in limbo. We can't do them right now. Like most of everyone else, we are a non-essential business, so we can't operate and we cannot photograph them. So we have pushed those back to hopefully late summer if regulations allow. And we're just kind of in the waiting game like everyone else. And we're being patient, we're being flexible, and we're here to support you and make sure all your needs are met. So.
Perfect. The late summer, everyone will have their summer glow from, you know, laying out in their yard because there might not be beaches, but they'll be looking very sun-kissed for their engagement sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. There's tons of options.
Something that you think, I mean, again, I know, you know, you don't work for the mayor, but is that something that engagement sessions that you think might be once like official lockdowns are lifted, or are you just not sure?
Yeah, I think it's going to vary state to state, county to county. With me being destination and being in two places, two locations, and actually photographing anywhere in the world, it really just depends on what each individual county or state is doing. So I have engagement sessions in California. Everything's locked down. They're not in as stage 1. So obviously those are going to have to wait to be lifted. Same thing, I have a wedding in Ireland. Travel bans are not, you know, lifted yet either. So we just kind of have to wait and play that game. So we're just hanging in there waiting for that green light to go. But we're very hopeful that maybe around stage 2 that we'll be able to do it and be able to socially distance.
For sure. Yeah, I know you've got all those amazing lenses. You know, you can shot with
yeah,
that.
I don't need to touch you. I would love to like keep them. Yeah.
Well, I loved what you were doing in the meantime, the virtual maternity sessions that you know, a couple of the photographers do that as well, and just guiding them. I mean, they took those photos themselves with you on FaceTime, and I mean, they were beautiful. So
yeah, we had a lot of fun with that, and clients are really interested in capturing, especially if, you know, you're time sensitive, like newborns and maternity.
For sure,
able to just have that one beautiful image just to remember that moment is great. And you know,
pictures were so beautiful. And I was bummed when the porch portraits had to get canceled, because it would be fun just to like kind of document this time, however it is. But maybe those will potentially come back in a different phase. I don't know.
Everyone's getting really creative with their cameras at home, whether it's a smartphone or their own camera. So it's really cool to see.
For sure.
And also, you know, be able to help with those resources to get those.
Definitely, yeah. And I think, you know, a lot of vendors, especially on this panel, you know, I mean, Melinda can show you the 4 seasons. We, you know, there's obviously she can, you know, through virtual tours and, you know, thousands of photos that can be sent over, you know, just to kind of show you various spaces, things like that. Obviously, Zoom calls with Victoria can talk all about florists and all about florists, all about flowers and kind of what's going on. It's, you know, luckily for Zoom, I mean, I'm sick of looking at my face, but it is so nice to have this tool, and you can really get a lot done until some of these, you know, in-person meetings can happen. A lot of kickoff calls, things like that happen. You know, a lot of our clients don't live around here. So, you know, maybe they grew up here and now they live in New York or somewhere else. So we're all, everybody here, you know, we've definitely done virtual, what do you call them, Jason?
I was going to say, I think we've done virtual calls with everybody here.
For sure.
Pre-COVID, because I know, Jason, you were about to talk and I cut you off, so I apologize, but I have to shout you out because you guys have always done virtual demos, at least
demos. There it is. I'm like,
yes, which is amazing. So sometimes people are just busy, or they live out of state, or there's a pandemic, but there are ways to adapt, which goes back to don't feel like you have to be at a standstill. We've got your back. You can keep planning your big day. Big day. We've got you.
And well, and a lot of clients, you know, do most of their planning through phone, video calls, things like that. Obviously, as much time as we can have with you in person, especially as the planner, is huge. And, you know, we always try to schedule at least a couple of trips back if you do live in California or Florida or wherever you may live. But, you know, a lot of planning is done, you know, via these tools anyway. So everybody is well versed on that. We should have had a little end with Jason, you know, sending us off on next time. All right. Well, I think that is all COVID related for now. Obviously use the chat if you have any other follow-up questions. We would love to answer those. We know there's probably, you know, there's a lot of questions surrounding this. Hopefully you got some good information there, but now we're going to just kind of dive into just general planning questions, kind of the lighter side of this, the more exciting, like, let's just get back to our roots and just chat about all the fun questions that we normally get for newly engaged couples. And Ashley, let's just kick off with, you know, where do you start? You know, we've actually talked to a decent amount of people who aren't engaged yet, but who are just like, I feel like we should be getting engaged, but it's lockdown. We can't celebrate with our friends, but we just want to talk about, what does this look like? Where do I start? So Ashley, maybe just kind of, you know, briefly let them know they need a wedding planner right away, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So where do you start? First move right here. Good job, guys. You're in great shape. So I commend you for that. So I would say typically we see people getting engaged and planning weddings as far as a year and a half, 2 years out from when they're looking to get married. The first step is always find a venue, hopefully start with a planner as well, because your planner and your venue really work together to bring everything to fruition in the beginning. You can't really do much until you find a venue, but where do you start? Especially if, again, you're busy or you live out of state and you just don't know what to do. So, of course, again, not to be biased, meeting with a planner first can really get you started on the right foot, because I'm assuming you may have not planned a wedding before, or it's been a really long time since your parents have planned a wedding. So where do you start? You start with the unfun but very important things like budget and guest count, because you need to figure out what type of space you're looking for. How big does it need to be? So things like that are really important to kick off. And from there, like I said, going and looking at these venues and speaking with the banquet managers and looking at the space, that really sets the tone for everything else down the line. So once you have your venue and your date and your planner, you can start looking at who else do you need to bring in from your team. And when you're working with a planner, that's what we help you do. We create this, I make things sound very logisticy, but they're also very fun. But you want to prioritize things, like people were saying before, who can only do one wedding a day? What is more important to me, having a DJ or having a band? Are you looking at paper? Do you want it to be, you know, just prioritizing your needs? And that's definitely something that we help you go through. So it's a lot to start with, but that's why you hire a planner to start with and kind of guide you guys through the way.
For sure. Yeah, definitely budget and guest count really drives a lot of things. You know, you don't want to go somewhere that obviously doesn't fit your guest count, or maybe you're going to spend all of your money in one place and you need to, you know, just make sure. And, you know, guest count is always an easy thing, especially now looking at potentially smaller weddings. You know, I know it's more forced than, you know, by choice, but that definitely drives the force. And like Ashley said, yeah, talking about what is the most important to you, and the budget breakdowns that we put together and most planners do, you know, can definitely kind of show you how the money gets spread out based on, you know, what you find the most important to you that day. But all right, so Megan, when should couples send save the dates? When should they send invites for just general planning?
So save the dates. Industry standard is 6 to 9 months before the wedding. So if you're doing custom design, you want to buffer in a good month to 2 months to really get the design process started. You know, you need to sort of figure out with your planner your vision and your concept for your big day before you sort of start being able to put those ideas on paper. So save the dates go 6 to 9 months. And then once your save the dates are out, there's this nice little lull period with paper. And then you talk about invitations. Invitations are mailed. So it used to be 6 to 8 weeks before the wedding, and that's sort of been pushed back. Most people mail around 10 weeks before the wedding. And that being said, if it's destination or if you have a large amount of out-of-town guests, people will push it back a little bit farther. I don't like to do any more than 12 weeks. People will forget to send their reply cards. But sort of industry standard is like that 10-week is your sweet spot. And again, if you're going custom, or even if you're not going custom and you just need a little bit of time for the back and forth and thinking about getting your postage and your guest list together and all of that stuff sort of proofed out, you want to give yourself a good, 6 weeks to get the design, the production, all of that stuff before you even think about mailing. So I like to just backtrack everything from the wedding date, so that your calendar is your friend when it comes to booking your paper dates out. And then when it comes to day of paper, typically it's designed and printed within the month of the wedding. So day of meeting, menus, escort cards, programs, any signage, that sort of thing. The month of the wedding is typically when you start to have the details you need to produce those pieces.
Perfect. Thank you. And then Renee, this question came in, and it could actually kind of be COVID and non-COVID related, but how do you cover the wedding without being intrusive to guests? And I know, again, if, going into some potential 2020 weddings, and obviously you're trying not to be in the middle of everything as it is, but obviously you need the shots and social distancing and all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, lucky for us, we like to be in the mix when we need to be. For example, like portraits. Obviously, with COVID, we will be approaching it a little bit differently. Staying 6 feet apart, but that's why we have the equipment to capture those close-ups if we need to do that. But as far as receptions, guests, we tend to just let everything happen organically and capture it from wherever. So we don't need to be up close and personal. We have the equipment. Your photographer should have the equipment to cover those moments without actually being right in the middle of everything.
Thank you. Yeah, you and so many photographers do such a great job. I mean, there's times they got to run up really quick and get this shot, but that is like most likely the shot you're going to print and put in your home or apartment, whatever, but they do their best to ninja around and
exactly ninja and kind of stay back and just watch the big picture happen, so that way we can find those key moments.
Yes, perfect. Jason, how do people know what kind of setup is needed for music? That was one of the questions. What kind of setup is needed?
Most couples have no idea, being that they're not a DJ or audio tech. So it really helps if, one, your planner is referring a DJ or your venue's referring a DJ that has experience there. Most weddings, when you're covering ceremony, cocktail, dinner, dance, the whole shebang, you're going to have 3 to 4 areas worth of equipment set up. We make sure all of our guys bring enough gear to outsource the whole thing, so that if anything's broken down, it's after the guests have left that area. So there's no kind of cross-pollination with setup and tear down stuff. That should be at the beginning and end of the event. And then again, we make sure we furnish enough stuff to cover everything. So if there's microphones needed for ceremonies, we'll do a multiple microphone setup for a lapel for the officiant, one for the groom, and then a mic off to the side that's wireless for any readings or speeches or singing that's happening. And again, making sure that we space our speakers or gear out so that you have everything at a nice volume that's even through the room. Focal point should be what's happening at the time. So the only time the volume is the focal point is when we have introductions or it's a special dance, and then when we cut them loose for dancing later. Otherwise, it's background time, and you should be able to hear the music, but it should be more ambient. So, in the grand scheme of things, just make sure you have a DJ that has more than one setup and that can cover a multi kind of op thing that's happening. We also work in tandem with an assistant or what we call a roadie that would help and kind of clean up behind the DJ as we stay with the event and the party.
Perfect. Yes, there's never a break in action, or in music,
Right.
which is nice.
Only time that it's off is during toasts.
Yes, that's true. Carolyn, what, defining production, basically, essentially in the term of wedding production, is it a build? What are you designing? Obviously, it's not related to flowers. If somebody wants a custom piece, how can they visualize it before it's made so they know what it's going to look like? We love our escort car displays here at Lemon and Lime. They're our favorite. And, just kind of explaining how a client, a lot of times people are visual. They need to see something, and my sketches are okay, not the best. So I know we work very closely with you to kind of put together, visuals for the clients, and just kind of talk a little bit about production and kind of
Yeah. So event production or wedding production, basically, like I said earlier, is everything that you would need to bring into a space that either already doesn't exist there or you would like it there. If you need a stage for the band and your venue doesn't have a stage, if you want custom tables or non-custom tables, simply rentals or lounge pieces, lighting is definitely part of production, a major part of production, which we'll touch on later. But yeah, it's basically anything that you need to bring into a space, and that could even be chairs and tables. If you are going for, a space that doesn't have those things, a lot of these industrial spaces in Baltimore don't. So those are things you need to look for. But anything that's custom that you've designed yourself or with your planners, or that we've designed with you as a team, we work with the graphics art department who can design things visually and digitally for you so that you can see things before they actually go into production and are made. Typically, we like you to sign off on things from a budget standpoint first, so we have that vote of confidence that we're not going down a rabbit hole, which we often do as creative people because we can take an inch and go a mile. So be cognizant of that too, especially now with everybody's teams being reduced and things running more on skeleton crews. But definitely anything custom designed, like an escort card vision you have or anything, would be digitally mocked up first, sent to you for approval. Make changes, edits, you could even scrap the whole thing and we start over, and then you approve it from there.
Thank you. Yes, I love your renderings. They're very, very helpful.
I often need them myself, so it's not really like I'm like, okay, I visualize what we're talking about, but I actually have no idea. So.
Yes, for sure. I think this
definitely
is
helpful for our
my ideas.
yeah.
You make them look much better.
It's helpful for our team just as much as it is.
I'm sure
for you guys as the clients. So.
For sure, especially that day. That day, but if it's coming in a couple different pieces or whatever else, it's like this is exactly what we want, or this is the vision. So it's really nice. All right. Going over to you, Melinda, how do you figure out how many hours to book for your venue, especially if you plan to have the ceremony at the same venue as the reception? Are there any rules of thumb?
So typically, we always block out an hour for a ceremony, and that doesn't mean that the ceremony will take an hour. Most ceremonies take about 15 to 30 minutes, but we usually will block an hour out just in case the bride is running late or the guests don't show up on time, or we have that blocked out. But most of the time, the ceremony will be about a half an hour. My thing with couples is the reception and cocktail hour is a total of 5 hours. So I say to people, when do you want your wedding to end? We have lots of couples who are like, my party's going till 2 o'clock in the morning. We have others who are like, I'm going to be in bed by 11. So it's very important to know when you want to end your wedding. So if you wanted to end your wedding at midnight, we would go backwards. We would do a 4-hour dinner and dancing. So that would bring us to, let me do my math, 8 o'clock if I'm right. So your cocktail hour would go from 7 to 8. Your dinner and dancing and party would go from 8 to midnight. So your ceremony, we would block from 6 to 7. So just to make it clear, it'd be 6 to 7 blocked for a ceremony. We might not start the ceremony till 6:30 to 7 o'clock for your ceremony, 7 to 8 for your cocktail hour, and 8 to midnight. So it's an hour for ceremony and 5 hours. We have many couples that want to extend, and we can definitely do extensions. In Baltimore, I believe we can serve alcohol and keep the ballrooms open until 1:45 a.m. So we're flexible, but that's the guidelines. It's always 5 hours and block an hour for the ceremony.
Perfect. I know some of my favorite after parties have been right when they're right there at the Four Seasons.
Oh, well, that doesn't include the after party.
No, I'm sorry, but just where you can extend or you can add on. Like, it's just so nice you have those capabilities there because you don't lose anybody. It's literally right down the hall, and you're just like, oh, here's the after party, and it's nice that you have those capabilities there.
And the thing with the after party is, like, if you want to use the other ballroom, if it's available for the after party, we won't charge you for that. It'll for the there'll be no rental fee. It'll just be for the alcohol. And then if we do like late night bites or any food consumed,
I would really love one of your little late night bites.
Yeah, those
we had last May at this time. I was just thinking of those the other day. A little drink overlooking the the skyline.
Yep.
I miss it. Thank you. That was very helpful. Somebody asked, and I'll take this one. I'll be brief, but I could talk about this for a while. But how do you come up with a wedding vision if you've never really had one? And how do you express a wedding vision productively with your vendors? So if you're not working with a planner to, put this together for you, there's definitely ways you can do it on your own. I think coming up with a list, think about, events, not even just weddings, but think about events that you've been to the last year or two or however long, and think about things that you loved about them. Think about things that you didn't like about them. Oftentimes expressing and gathering thoughts about things that you don't like. Maybe you, looking behind me, maybe you don't like stripes, you don't like navy, you don't like red roses, just think about some things that you don't like, because sometimes that can really help when you're talking to someone like Victoria or Megan, for your invite designs, and they'll clearly walk you through a bunch of different things at your consultation and kind of help you narrow down what you're liking and not liking. But definitely gather things that you're just drawn to, even looking at your apartment or your home, looking at your wardrobe, how the wedding should be a nice reflection of you. I'm not saying it needs to be a mirror image of, what your apartment looks like, but just kind of dive into your personal style and, again, going back to what's important to you. And I think if you can make a quick little mood board with some photos that you really are drawn to, maybe they're of a wedding, maybe they're interior design. Canva is a great free program that you can use. You can just put it on Google Docs too, and just, put 6 to 8, 10 photos, and maybe come up with a couple sentences. We want the party going all night long. We don't want it to be too stuffy, but we definitely want it to be a more formal affair. Just try to come up with some of those words. Your wedding professionals team with a couple pictures and a couple sentences. It'll definitely start your consultation off on the right foot as far as kind of the vision that you're going for. So hopefully that was helpful. I love the design. I could talk about it for a while, but I know, you guys don't want to hear me all night. Victoria, one question was, are you able to, and how do you reuse ceremony florals into the reception?
Sure. We always tried our best to stretch the client's budgets and make sure that the flowers are working as long as possible throughout the wedding. So the couple things, as long as we're reusing flowers from ceremony to reception and those places are in the same vicinity and they're easy to get to, we can do that. That's number one rule. Like, I know some spaces, for instance, you have to go through the cocktail hour space in order to get to the reception. We will not do that because we don't want to disturb your guests. This is not what the guests want to see. They want to see the Disney magic where things just appear, they just happen. So if we cannot do that, we will not be able to reuse it. Or maybe we can do it for, like, again, the after party, or create something really special for the departure, etc. So we'll definitely try to be creative. Another thing is, for instance, if you have a ceremony outside and it's summer and we know that we need to set the flowers up ahead of time and it's really hot, we might, and if, let's back off a little bit, let's say you plan to use some flowers from the ceremony aisle to table centerpieces. By the time your reception comes, the flowers might not be looking their best just because they've been outside and exposed to the elements like the wind and the sun. So we will discourage you from doing that. And I would say the popular question is about the bridesmaids bouquets, if they can be reused for the wedding for like centerpieces. Again, we try our best to incorporate as many flowers, from personal flowers to ceremony flowers, into the reception, but we want to make sure that they look pretty. A lot of times, again, the girls start their day taking pictures several hours before the reception. So by the time reception comes, those flowers are really hanging in there. And some girls are really careful with the flowers, really particular, and some girls, they're just, not really worried about flowers. They worry about champagne or, girlfriends, whatever, having a good time, that's pretty much what it's all about. So we discourage using flowers, planning to use the bridal bouquets for the table centerpiece or anything that's going to be really important. But let's say dessert station, or maybe on the welcome table, somewhere where we or planner team can have discretion. Oh, this flower doesn't look good, so let's just skip it. And it's not like we're missing a table centerpiece. And the last thing is about the bridal bouquets as reusing them for the reception, is the fact that the bouquets, they're size-wise, they're much smaller than the guest table. So a lot of times when couples ask us to use bouquets for the table centerpieces, proportionally, they're not going to look right. Pretty much in order for the standard table, we're talking about 5.5, 6 foot round table, you need at least 3 of those bouquets to look proportional. So again, when we are trying to discourage you to do certain things, it's not because we don't want to, because we want your wedding to look really beautiful. So we will any good florist will come up with really fun, creative ideas to stretch your flowers as much as possible, but maybe not the way you plan it or some blogs are telling you. So we just want to make sure that your wedding looks beautiful, that we're proud of what we've done, and most importantly, you're happy when you walk into the room.
Such good advice. Yes. These bridesmaids sometimes and their bouquets, I'm like, it's not a football. What are we doing with it?
Right.
And then, like you said, it is, we're all about trying to reuse what, is used and things like that, but not on, the table that guests will have direct eyesight with.
The most photographed table. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I love the bridesmaids. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, you can't, please don't. But yeah, and especially, if you're getting married outside, even if someone's being very, very gentle with it, obviously your bouquets last, but it's very warm here sometimes in Maryland. So, and
people will. So
for sure, exactly. We're all sweating. So flowers are they fall along with that as well. So yes, definitely very, very good advice. And, I think, like you said, if I read one more blog that says, please reuse, your July bridesmaids bouquets on your head table, and you're just like, oh man. But just if you're having a winter wedding and maybe not going outside, and the proportion wise, like Victoria was saying, maybe that's a different conversation, and like she said, your florist will definitely walk you through the pros and cons of some of the reuse questions. But anyway, this is a lovely topic that we definitely chat about a lot. But Megan, how do we nicely put no kids on our invites?
Well, if you're asking Emily Post, you do not ever put that on your invitation. But I know that a lot of people do need to share with their guests that children are not invited to the wedding, or, it's an adult-only reception. So my biggest recommendation would be, if you must put something on your paper suite, on the details card, you can note adult-only reception, or share information about, babysitters that are being offered by, a service or something that's, recommended. That's one thing I would say is appropriate, but I would never, ever put it on your invitation itself. Save that for the details card. And then additionally, if you're feeling very concerned about people bringing additional guests or bringing children, you have the option for a double envelope. So that meaning the outer envelope would be where your guest address is written. So Mr. and Mrs. Michael Kenny, our address, whatever. And on the inside would be the names of the actual guests invited. So, Megan Kenny, Mike Kenny, and that's it. Which, I guess people could miss that and then assume that their children are still invited, but that's sort of your most foolproof way to let your guests know this is exactly who's invited to the wedding. Some people also choose on their reply card to leave a little line for number invited. I really don't like to do that because it invites people to add a guest if they want, or, bring their children or add their friend or whatever. And then you have that awkward conversation where it's like, I see that you added an additional person. They weren't invited. So really, I mean, it is a tricky topic for a lot of people. And I get that question more and more now, but there are gentle ways to kind of get around just saying, like, please leave your children at home.
Yes, thank you. Hopefully, if anyone questions, just say, don't you want a night out without your lovely child? Especially after this. Everyone's had a lot of togetherness time in 2020 so far. So hopefully those questions won't happen for the next year. So they'll be like, please,
take the kids.
They're gonna be home. All right, so Ashley, I know we'll try to quickly run through some of the rest of these questions just so we get to all of them. But just kind of quickly touch on, if my venue has a wedding coordinator, do I need a wedding planner? Just a couple of the hot items as far as, how is a wedding planner different from a venue coordinator?
Melinda, feel free to jump in.
Wait,
I love you.
I have a lot to say on that topic, so.
I love you. I love you. Okay, so speaking for Lemon and Lime, for Lemon and Lime, we are very team oriented. I know a lot of the people on the panel already touched on this, but from the beginning, obviously we have our couple's best interests at heart, but we are also working with your entire wedding professional team together on your whole wedding weekend. So if we are working with you from the moment that you've got engaged, we know every single detail that is going into the wedding. I always joke that I'm the person on the team that is sifting through the guest list, most likely, aside from Morgan. Hi, Morgan. So even when we meet your guests on the wedding day, I'm like, oh my God, Sally, I remember you sent your RSVP card. I know that you ordered beef. Like, we know everything about the wedding. So you are also working with your venue contact throughout the process, but that is specifically geared towards everything having to do with your venue, your catering, the space itself. You can go to them for whatever questions that you have in terms of the space and the food and things like that, which I know Melinda will touch on as well. But your wedding planner is really working with you on everything else. And that way, when the weekend comes, you guys are really just washing your hands of all things logistics, design, questions. You're not talking to anyone. You're letting us handle it. And again, that goes back to trusting us from the beginning with all of your plans. So that's really how I see the difference between the two. But also on the day of, or that whole weekend, we are in constant contact. Hopefully we don't annoy them too much, but we are in constant contact with whoever our person is at the venue, keeping everything seamless and running things back of house, just to make sure, again, nothing gets missed. And again, going back to that team mentality, we just want to make sure you guys are having the best day ever and you don't notice any of the little hiccups that might come about. So that's everybody's end goal. Your entire wedding team, everybody on the panel, I think, can agree. But we all work hand in hand. So that's kind of my short, I was supposed to give a short answer.
Melinda,
that's my answer.
Unmuted. So it's a great conversation to have because it's definitely a team effort. And there are obviously things as the venue that, Melinda or someone in her similar position would be in charge of. And it's great when it's like, hey, we got the ceremony offsite at the church and I know you're going to have, Melinda, I saw you on mute though, so I'll let you.
Yeah. No, I mean, exactly what you said is how it is. But I always tell the couples when they ask me, like, we're taking care of everything in the house. So we're taking care of, the service staff, the timing, the moving of the guests, like getting you, if you happen to, decide to get dressed at the hotel or you're arriving from a church on our front drive, that is where your wedding planner comes in. We concerned with the flow, the timing of the food coming out. I always tell people, you know, I need to know everything you're doing up until the food goes out. After that, it becomes just a party. So it's a party that your planner can run. But we deal with the staff, your guests, and your planner is really pulling all the strings together. I don't know when the flowers show up, if the planner happens to be at the church, if she doesn't have somebody left behind to assist. I don't know that the purple flowers with the orange ribbon aren't correct. Like, you might be like an Orioles fan and that's what you wanted. And I'm handing you that bouquet to say, okay, here you go. So that's why your planner is so key, because we work hand in hand. They can work without me. I can't work without them. And you know, all I can say is it is an essential part of our business. We do require it at the Four Seasons. We require a planner because we've seen too many things fall between the cracks. Your aunt is wonderful. Your girlfriend from college is a doll, but they have never planned a wedding before. So please don't start with your own. Don't start with your own. It's not a good time to try it. So.
And I think that's a really good point too. I mean, that's the other part of why we spend so much time working with our couples from the beginning, to make sure that whoever we are pulling together to be on their team of people is someone who is experienced, knows what they're doing, because not only are they going to do an amazing job for you guys and provide a great service, they are going to make everybody's lives so much easier, because I know that when I go to the Four Seasons, I don't have to think about any of that. I'm not thinking about where's the band's power, is the food on time, is it hot, I don't have to worry about that. Just like I know if I accidentally forgot to tell Jason that I needed a microphone, he's got it, because Jason is very responsible, and Jason knows that sometimes I forget a microphone. So we all work.
Speaking of Jason,
I know. Hello, Jason. But I think it's very important. It's very important.
Definitely, it's a group effort for sure, and we love working with our venue contacts, and like Melinda said, we wouldn't survive without them, especially very, very knowledgeable ones, like Melinda is. So, Jason, moving on to songs, can people pick songs? Obviously they can. Do they pick every song? Kind of how does that work, or do you control the whole list? I know you don't, but go into that a little bit for us.
Yeah, so when we interview or start working with a couple, we let them know that they're going to be our co-pilot and putting together a soundtrack for the night of. So it's not just me showing up and doing my canned wedding mix. A lot of wedding DJs that aren't referred by a lot of higher end planners typically have a shtick that they do and they show up with, and that's not really us. Ours is very customized and personalized around what each couple discusses with us. So anything from ceremony music to introduction songs to the parent dances, we edit the music for them if they want shorter edits, etc. And you know, they have total control of their playlist. So they can give us 5 or 10 tracks, or they can give us 50 to 100 tracks. That's when we're very blunt and say, you have a 4-hour reception. I can't play 6 hours with the music, so we need to whittle that down. But yes, everything is totally at their disposal as far as what they want to do with control, or just kind of letting us roll with it and complimenting what they give us.
Perfect. Thank you. And I know we still have a couple more questions to go through. We'll try to wrap up around 8:30. I know everyone has very exciting Thursday nights ahead. Clubs, bars, parties, gatherings. So I don't want to hold you from those. But if anyone does have questions as of now, please submit them, and then we'll kind of keep going through our list, and then we'll make sure we get any of your questions addressed. So you can just submit them in the chat now, and then we'll make sure we kind of bump those up in addition to the last couple questions that we have here. Okay, so Carolyn, what's the difference between uplights, pin spots, washes? My venue already has lighting. Do I need more? I love when we talk about pin spots and washes, and clients look at us like, what is that? And I often forget that not everybody, knows that lingo.
Right.
So, yeah, talk to us a little bit about that.
Lighting is definitely a gray area of the event world that people don't realize is actually pretty important to creating a mood and a vibe for your event.
Sorry to interrupt, but yourself right now, I think, is a great example of that. Yeah,
mine is not. Sorry.
But so, in short, basically, indoor events versus outdoor. Surprisingly, you actually need more lighting indoor than you would at an outdoor event. Typically, if you're doing an outdoor event, it's probably during a time of year where you have a lot of natural light. So you probably only need functional light after that, which is, you know, just to make sure people leaving your event aren't, you know, killing themselves, falling and not knowing where they're going. But for indoor events, a lot of the times you can't really control the overhead lighting that's provided at the venue. If you can, you know, you certainly should ask those questions when you are touring spaces or you're trying to decide a venue. Maybe that's important to you. I know that certain venues, newer venues might be taking that into account, which I love. It makes our job easier for sure, but a lot of the times you can't really control the lighting in a venue space, which usually means it's either all on or it's all off. If they have dimmers, they could be 20 years old, and so you go to dim a light and it starts flickering and you think you're, you know, your deceased grandma's or something. But the difference between, so just to go quickly, an uplight is going to provide a lot of color in your room. An uplight is just that, it travels up. So it's typically going to be against a wall or on a column. It'll illuminate things from the ground up and it'll give your space some color. Pin spots are for, you know, to highlight Victoria's beautiful flower arrangements that you've probably paid a lot of money for. It also helps to illuminate your table in general, unless you have like a seance worth of candles on your table. You're gonna find that, which I love a good seance. I mean, throwback to 1992 when I was a kid, but they will not provide enough light for you to eat dinner properly. So a lot of the times you need a pin spot to help illuminate the beautiful table centerpiece, but also provide additional lighting for your guests to be eating and, you know, buttering their bread and simple things like that. And then finally, a wash is something that can really provide focal point lighting. So maybe to highlight your bar. People don't realize that, like, your bar is like in the dark by the time, you know, the sun sets, and, you know, your guests are wondering where it went, but it's just in the corner of the room and it's completely dark because you haven't illuminated it. And you can highlight everything from your dance floor with washes. DJs you want to check with, like with someone like Jason, to see what their packages provide, because a lot of the times they bundle things for you to provide that party lighting, which are moving lights and things that really kind of like amp up your guests to want to hit the dance floor and stay on the dance floor all night. So those are things that your, you know, DJ or entertainment company can provide. We can also provide them if you're somebody who's like super into like event production and you want like laser beams and stuff. We can definitely do that. But typically the rule of thumb is, you know, work with a production company, work with an event planner who kind of knows the lingo and can help you navigate that, to work with pricing and packages so that you feel comfortable with what you're budgeting for that item.
Perfect. So, and we'll kind of jump, we have a couple of questions, but I'll jump real quick because I think this one is very important, Melinda, and then kind of get to some of the questions just asked and two more on our list. And I think hopefully that'll be a lot of good information to end the evening with. But how should people estimate a guest count, you know, with their caterer venue when, you know, you're needing to make a proposal, there's minimums. Obviously you don't know from the get-go how many people can make it. So what is your advice there?
I always advise the couples to, if they come in and they say, well, we're going to be anywhere from about 150 people to 200 people, or they come in and say we could be 75 to 100. As long as we're meeting the food and beverage minimums, which is a minimum based upon the collection that you select. Our collections are very inclusive. It's a price per person. So once we establish what type of menu you'd like, and it doesn't have to be, are we going to have crab cakes or are we going to have filet? It's just how many courses we're going to have and what's important to you. Once we establish that price point, then we would establish the food and beverage minimum. And with the food and beverage minimum, that's really where I say to them, that is the most important thing on their contract, because it doesn't matter down the road when the planning is coming to fruition, how many people are there. It's that you have met your food and beverage minimum. So my advice always is to go with the lower number So if you're saying I'm between 150 and 200, let's write your contract for 150. You could always go up, and then you're not, freaking out the last month saying, oh my God, all these people can't come because, there's a conflict with their travel schedule. So go with the lower number. That's the best way, and it's the safest way, especially now if we're watching our budgets. Don't over commit.
Yes, definitely good advice. It's a tough question, but it's the perfect plan. And then, obviously you can always add people. The Four Seasons allows you to add people. Shockingly, we all allow, additions. So that's good advice.
Yeah.
All right. So kind of piggybacking, not jumping, from what Carolyn was talking about, Victoria, what are some of maybe your two favorite areas to highlight with florals?
I would say in general, I feel like sometimes a lot of times people try to spread their budget on so many different things, and then they get frustrated that they cannot achieve what they want, meaning centerpiece, I want the centerpiece, I want the aisle for the ceremony, I want a beautiful ceremony, etc. What we usually suggest for every area of the wedding, figure out the focal point and make it powerful. If that is successfully achieved, then other things can go a little bit more simple, but your wedding is going to look like $1 million. So, for instance, for the ceremony, definitely an altar. Focus on making it gorgeous, and don't let money. First of all, don't start calculating how much you can afford. Tell the designer your dreams, because sometimes we can creatively take your idea and bring it to life in a way that you might not imagine. So give us your ideal case scenario. What are you dreaming of? So we can possibly incorporate it. And again, maybe suggested, for instance, for the reception, maybe it could be, depending on orientation, if guests come into the room and first they see the dance floor and the band, maybe something really cool as a band backdrop or something above the dance floor. So that's the first thing they see. That's the most impressive item. And I think that's worth spending money on. For tables, you can go something simple. Maybe you can do some candles. Maybe you can do just hydrangea or whatever it might be. But if you have a strong, powerful focal point in the room, that will make your wedding look really cool, very personable, and very memorable. So focal points, that would be my suggestion.
Definitely agree, shockingly. Okay, I think we have one more for each category, including some of the ones that came in. So that all good questions. Renee, we love this one, but why do a first look?
Yeah, absolutely. That's always a good question. Yeah, it's always a debate. Most of the time the grooms don't want to do it, and the bride is like pushing through it. But there's several reasons why. If you're getting married in the winter, there's no more light after a certain hour. So if you want those beautiful daylight or golden hour portraits, you definitely want to put in a first look. Given that sunset is usually around 4:30 in the winter. Another reason why is if you want to get all your pictures out of the way, so that way you can go straight from your ceremony to your cocktail hour and just enjoy your time with your guests, which a lot of our clients usually do end up doing that because they want to just have that time, more time with their guests instead of just skipping out for all of cocktail hour. So yeah, those are pretty much the two main reasons why you would do it. And then the third, a little bit more obvious, is if you just want to get the nerves out and you want to see each other and you're excited, you want to have a little moment before. I do promise you that even if you do a first look, when you walk down the aisle, it's still a different feeling, and you're still going to be excited and have those butterflies when you do see each other for the first time down the aisle. So you're not getting rid of that feeling at all.
Nothing will take that away.
Yeah.
And it is nice. Sometimes if you do have a 4:30 or 5:30 ceremony, you spend most of the day apart. I know it sounds dramatic, but it is nice to, see each other a couple hours earlier than that, get the nerves out, and be able just to spend time together, even if it is, running around town getting photos or whatever else. Okay, so Jason, a couple for you. What are some of the best songs for the bride and groom to be introduced into the reception room for? And also, you know, what if no one's dancing? We want a packed dance floor all night. You know, does that come down to song selection? And just a couple thoughts on that. Oop, I think you're muted.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What I said is I think I'm going to start with the harder question, which was the second part. So we tell our couples we're there to create an atmosphere, an environment throughout each portion of the day. We're not there to force grandma out of her seat or pull on people or call people out. So it definitely depends on your guest and the demographic coming. If they're introverts and the bride and groom are very blunt with us saying we're not dancers, we expect going into it, it's going to be a chiller event and we're still going to create the right vibe for them, even if they're not dancing. And I'll tell you, more times than less, it's the ones that say we're not really dancers that like are the throwdown weddings. And then we'll have couples that are like, you know, super lit in the meetings with us. And then we get them to the wedding and they're just like outside the whole time. And like, I'm like, look, you guys are the focal point. If you're on the floor, they're going to follow you. If you go outside, they're going to follow you. If you go up to the rooftop, they're going to follow you. So having the couple be a part of the dance floor is one of the biggest things. Also having a DJ that can read the crowd and adjust to what we're playing and switching out of decades and genres. All of our guys, especially beat mix. So you're building momentum throughout the night until we cap it with one of the soft things like a cake cutting or a special dance. As far as getting into song selection for introductions, anything that's going to have like a 120 or higher BPM tempo, or even the hip hop stuff, again, it depends on what the couple's into. But going back with like throwbacks like Nelly or Usher always work. If you're doing more of the modern stuff and you're going kind of mainstream to appease the crowd, something like Shut Up and Dance, or I hate to say it, but the Pitbull stuff always works. It's not my personal favorite, but it never not fails. So again, it just depends on what the couple's into and what their personality and style is. And that's how we kind of mesh and give them suggestions for what we think is going to be best to kind of complement what they kind of give us to with their aura.
Man, shade for Pitbull, huh? No, I'm just kidding. That's good advice. I'm sure you've heard those songs about gajillion. We've all heard them a million times. You've probably heard them 2 million times, and I get that. But yeah, no, that is, it's funny. I do feel like it's the people are like, oh, we're pretty timid, and then it's like they're out there like they're professional dancers. Like, oh. Okay, so 2 more I think, which could be great for the rest of 2020 for Melinda and Victoria. So Melinda, you know, looking at the rest of the year, and obviously 2021, we've talked a lot about Saturdays most likely being booked. Fridays and Sundays will be next. You know, I know the post-COVID world is a very weird place and it's much different than last year was. But, you know, what about venues offering lower rates for certain days of the week or times of the year? Do you think that's going to be kind of potentially null for next year because it is going to be so busy? Or do you expect potentially some sort of reduced fee for a Monday wedding, a Thursday wedding, which we do think will be more common?
Right. Well, we never discount our food and beverage. So that, you know, it's always the same price, no matter if it's a Sunday, Tuesday, or even a Saturday. Where we are flexible is on our food or beverage minimums. So for example, you know, in light of everything that's happening, people are saying, I was going to invite X number of people. If there's restrictions and I have to cut back my guest count by half, we are going to have to reduce their food and beverage minimums, and we're being flexible with that. So I see going into 2021 for new couples that are looking to book that we're not going to be reducing, but maybe if you get married on a Friday, the food and beverage minimum is going to be lower. If you get married on a Thursday, of course, it's going to be lower. So we're more flexible to work with budgets. If someone comes to me and says, this is my budget, we're going to let them know where it can work. We do also have couples now that are asking about like brunch weddings and, you know, things that start at 11 and go to 4. We have a lot of inquiries for Sundays now. So the quote discount is really the food and beverage minimums are either relaxed, or non-existent. So we'll work with you.
Yeah, and it's really nice, you know, if you are looking, you know, you really want to get married at the Four Seasons, need to figure something out, you know, a Thursday wedding, you know, it's great because you could plan some fun activities for that Friday, and then your guests have the weekend to either hang out in Baltimore or, you know, go back home and still have, you know, a weekend. So I do think weekday weddings will have some great advantages, both financially, you know, and just mix it up a little bit for next year.
Yeah, they do. The only thing I do mention to couples is like a lot of them want to do the hotel rooms, the hotel blocks with us as well, so their guests can stay at the hotel. And if they tend to go to like holiday weekends, Saturdays or Sundays of a long weekend, your hotel rates would be much higher. But again, you know, COVID world, the rates are probably going to be adjusted. But I've done a comparison in the city, and you know, even though we are a luxury brand, we're much more affordable than people think. So, you know, just if it doesn't hurt to ask us, it doesn't hurt to call me, and let's entertain the idea of like what your budget is and how we can make it work, because we're always willing to do that.
Amazing. Yeah, that's very good to know. And then lastly, Victoria, I know, you know, some people had these early, or not early, but late, early to mid-April weddings. You know, it's April, it's 65 maybe. And, you know, now, no matter what it might look like, but they're going to be having a late August wedding or an early September wedding. You know, any flowers that are better for outdoors, you know, I know selections may be limited and whatever else, but any flowers they should avoid and or try to have more of?
Sure. I would say in general, for hot weather, we try to stay away from flowers like hydrangea. It's really gorgeous, beautiful, lush and fluffy, but it wilts pretty much as you look at it in hot weather. So if you really have your heart set on hydrangea for something like your ceremony arch, it's okay to use a silk flower. So as long as the guests are not touching it, they will never see a difference. So in the hot days, that would be nice to substitute it kind of like just as a mix. But things like roses, things like stock, delphinium, any tropicals for sure, orchids, etc. They do fantastic in the weather. But again, from going back to what I mentioned in the beginning, if you give your florist a little bit of creativity and a little bit of freedom to substitute if necessary, you're going to get the best results. Because, you know, we do order flowers ahead of time, but there are certain things that can't be substitutable. So if we know that your favorite flower is hydrangea and we're heading for the cold spell, maybe we will substitute a few things and give it to you. So again, give your professionals a little bit of freedom to do the best job they can for you.
Amazing. Well, just like that, it's 8:31. So good timing on that. I don't know if there was anything else anyone wanted to add. Thank you all so much for, I know we're trying to keep it to an hour, but hopefully it was a lot of great information for you. I learned some things myself, and anyone want to add anything? Good. Well, thank you so much. You know, definitely if you have any follow-up questions or need anyone's contact information on this panel, you can shoot anyone at Lemon and Lime an email. We'll make sure to get you in touch. And yeah, we wish everybody a great, well, almost a weekend, a great weekend. And whether you're hopefully getting married this year or next year, you know, no matter what plan you're on, plan B or C or whatever, you know, we've had a lot of clients for various reasons go to plan B and C, and, you know, they still look back at, you know, one of the best days of their lives, even if it might look a little different from what they imagined. So we really hope that for all of you. And or you're just going to make this a 2-year celebration. You're going to go have a little mini Mooney. I don't know why this is hard for me, but you're going to do that at the Four Seasons with, you know, and then you're just going to have a huge party in 2021. And hey, it's 2.5 years of celebrating you. And I think that's great too. I think you should have 2 bachelorette parties, you know, just go all out. Your friends will love it, I'm sure. But thank you to the panel as well for all of your time. You guys are all amazing, and we're just so glad to know you and to work with you day in and day out on the happy times and the sad, harder times as well. But
Thank you.
have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.